In a notable break from President Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson is calling for the Department of Justice to release all of its information on Jeffrey Epstein. Speaker Johnson made those comments during an interview with conservative influencer Benny Johnson.
We should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And you know, Pam Bondi, I don't know, when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, they were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved so that they can deal with violent crime and public safety and election integrity and going after Act Blue.
Okay, so picture this, the Capitol, total chaos. Republicans tearing into each other, and right in the middle of it all, MAGA Mike Johnson looking like he's about to lose everything. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy President Trump personally backed for speaker, the guy who was supposed to keep the party in line and ram through the MAGA agenda, he's now facing a full-scale revolt from his own people. And honestly, it's gotten so bad that Republicans are openly plotting to just bypass him completely. Here's what's going down. We've got a government shutdown grinding on. We've got troops potentially missing paychecks. Basic government functions are stalling out. And what does Speaker Johnson do? He shuts the House down, sends everyone home, refuses to even bring members back for a vote. Can you believe this? But wait, it gets better, or worse, depends on how you look at it. Because while all this shutdown chaos is exploding, there's another bomb going off inside the Capitol, the Jeffrey Epstein files. Yeah, those files, the ones everyone's been screaming about for years. Republicans, Democrats, everyone wants transparency, or so they say. Except Mike Johnson, he's trying to duck the vote entirely. And that decision, that one choice to avoid transparency, is turning into his worst nightmare. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
With the White House giving Putin an ultimatum to end the war, Trump said this about the Russian president today.
So far, I've been very disappointed with President Putin. I've solved a lot of wars in the last 3 months, but I haven't gotten this one yet. This is a Biden war. It's not a Trump war. I'm here to try and get us out of that mess.
Now, Robert, we've seen how Trump can turn on people, but Vladimir Putin is not just any person, and he seems unfazed by Trump's strategy of threatening sanctions and publicly criticizing him. So what more can President Trump do?
He's trying to push President Putin around to get him to the negotiating table, but it certainly isn't easy. My sources inside the White House and around President Trump's inner circle say the president wants peace, that he was elected in his belief as someone who was going to quickly bring a negotiation, at least to start, between President Putin and President Zelensky. But that hasn't happened. President Zelensky is trying to get an end to this war on some.
And that's where things get really wild, because hard-right conservatives, actual Trump loyalists, they're not having it. Rep. Thomas Massie is leading a discharge petition that's basically Congress saying, you know what, we don't need the speaker's permission. We're forcing this vote ourselves. Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there publicly blasting leadership, calling them out for hiding from transparency. This is the MAGA wing, President Trump's own people, turning on the speaker Trump put in power. Let that sink in for a second. The guy who was supposed to be Trump's enforcer in Congress is now being eaten alive by the very movement that elevated him. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash, except the car is on fire and there's no brakes and everyone inside is fighting over the steering wheel. And the worst part, Johnson saw this coming. He knew this would blow up in his face, but he did it anyway because he thought he could control it. He thought he could manage the chaos. He was wrong, dead wrong. Here's why this matters right now. This isn't just some insider baseball Capitol Hill drama that political nerds care about. This is showing us something huge, something most people are completely missing. It shows how fragile President Trump's grip on Congress really is. Think about it. If Mike Johnson, the hand-picked speaker, can't control his own conference, if he's being openly challenged over basic stuff like bringing the House back to vote or allowing transparency on Epstein, what does that say about Trump's ability to push his actual agenda through? This is the party on the edge of a civil war, and we're watching it happen in real time. PBS reported that Johnson literally shut the House down early back in July, specifically to avoid losing control of the Rules Committee. He knew if they stayed in session, conservatives would force an Epstein transparency vote. So what did he do? Packed everyone up, turned off the lights, went home. The headlines wrote themselves. House Speaker shuts down chamber to block Epstein vote. Come on, how does that look? The party that's supposed to be all about transparency and draining the swamp, their own speaker is shutting down Congress to avoid a transparency vote. It's the kind of move that would have had Republicans screaming for impeachment if Nancy Pelosi had pulled it. But because it's their guy, because it's MAGA Mike, they're supposed to just accept it. Not happening. And now, all those decisions are catching up to him. The shutdown's dragging on. Members are furious they got sent home instead of being allowed to do their jobs. The Epstein file situation has turned into a full-blown circus, and Johnson standing there looking weak, isolated, and absolutely terrified of losing his gavel. Republicans who want to fight are feeling handcuffed. Republicans who want to govern are feeling embarrassed. And the Democrats? Oh, they're having a field day watching MAGA eat itself from the inside. This is the storm. This is what happens when you try to serve two masters. When you're trying to keep Trump happy while also trying to run an actual institution. Eventually, something breaks. And right now, Mike Johnson is the thing that's breaking. He's trapped in this impossible position where every move he makes just digs the hole deeper. If he caves to the conservatives, Trump gets angry. If he stays loyal to Trump, the base revolts. If he tries to split the difference, everybody sees through it and trusts him even less. There's no way out, and the clock is ticking. So buckle up, because what we're about to break down goes way deeper than just one speaker in trouble. This is about how the entire power structure in Washington is crumbling. It's about how 2026 primaries are already shaping up to be a bloodbath. And it's about how the question everyone's going to be asking is this: did you fight for transparency? Or did you become part of the swamp you promised to drain? For Mike Johnson, that question is already being answered in real time. And the answer, well, it's not looking good for him. Not good at all. Let's get into it. All right, so here's what most people don't understand about what's happening right now. They see the headlines. Speaker in trouble, shutdown chaos, Epstein files, and they think it's all separate stories. Like these are just random problems piling up at the same time. Wrong. This is all connected. And once you see how it fits together, the whole picture gets a lot darker. Let's start with the shutdown itself. Because this isn't your typical budget fight where both sides dig in and eventually work something out. This is different. This is Republicans controlling the House, and they still can't keep the government running. Why? Because Mike Johnson doesn't want to bring members back to vote. Yeah, you heard that right. During a historic government shutdown, while service members are at risk of missing paychecks, while federal workers are getting furloughed, while basic government functions are grinding to a halt, the Speaker of the House decides the best move is to just send everyone home. No votes. No negotiations happening on the floor, no public debate, just nothing. And the silence from leadership is deafening. Republicans are furious, and they're not hiding it anymore. Axios reported that Johnson is facing a growing internal revolt, specifically over this. Members are saying there's no excuse for shutting down and going dark while the country's falling apart. But here's where it gets interesting. Why would Johnson do this? Why would he take the political hit of looking weak and ineffective instead of just bringing everyone back and forcing votes? Because he's scared. He knows if he brings the House back into session, he loses control. Conservatives will force votes he doesn't want. They'll demand amendments he can't stop. And worst of all, they might actually succeed in bypassing him entirely. So instead of facing that fight head on, instead of actually leading, he's hiding. He's hoping if he keeps everyone away from Washington long enough, the pressure will die down. The anger will fade. People will move on to the next crisis. Except that's not what's happening. The anger is building. The pressure is intensifying. And every day Johnson stays in hiding makes him look weaker and more desperate. Which brings us to the Epstein files. So for years now, there's been this push for full transparency on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Release the files, show the flight logs, name names, let the American people see everything. And look, this isn't a partisan thing. Both sides have people who want this. Both sides have people who are terrified of what might be in those files. It's one of those rare issues where public pressure is coming from everywhere. Mike Johnson knows this. He knows the political winds. He knows his base. The MAGA base is screaming for transparency. But he also knows what President Trump wants. And that's where things get complicated. Because Trump's position on the Epstein files isn't exactly release everything immediately. It's more like controlled transparency, strategic disclosure, giving people enough to feel like they're getting answers without actually burning down everyone who might be implicated. And Johnson, he's trying to thread that needle, trying to keep Trump happy while also not looking like he's part of a cover-up. Spoiler alert, it's not working. The problem is you can't kind of be transparent. You can't selectively release information and call it accountability. Either you're committed to the truth or you're not. And right now, Johnson looks like he's not. Back in July, this all came to a head. PBS and AP both reported the same story. Johnson ended the House session early, specifically because he was about to lose a vote on the Epstein files. Here's what happened. The Rules Committee, which controls what gets voted on, they were moving toward allowing a floor vote on Epstein transparency. Johnson saw it coming. He knew if that vote happened, it would pass. Full transparency would win. So what did he do? Shut down the entire chamber, sent everyone home, avoided the vote completely. The BBC ran with it. U.S. House Speaker shuts down chamber to block Epstein vote. CNN picked it up. It became international news. And suddenly, Mike Johnson wasn't just a guy managing a tough conference. He was the guy actively blocking transparency on one of the biggest scandals in modern American history. Can you imagine the optics of that? MAGA Mike, the guy who's supposed to be fighting the deep state and draining the swamp. He's shutting down Congress to protect who exactly? What's he hiding? Why is he so scared of a simple transparency vote? Those questions started spreading, not just among Democrats looking for ammunition, but among actual Trump supporters who legitimately want those files released. People who voted for drain the swamp politics. People who were promised accountability and transparency. And now they're watching their own speaker run away from both. And that's when the revolt really started. Thomas Massie, Kentucky Republican, libertarian, definitely not someone you call a Reno or establishment type. He starts organizing. He's putting together a discharge petition. For those who don't know, a discharge petition is basically the nuclear option in the House. It's how regular members can force a vote even if leadership doesn't want it. You need a majority to sign on, 218 signatures, and then boom, the bill goes straight to the floor. Speaker can't stop it. Massie is going for it. And he's not alone. Marjorie Taylor Greene, probably the most vocal Trump loyalist in Congress, she's publicly blasting leadership. She's calling them out for hiding from transparency. She's making it crystal clear that this isn't about protecting Trump or MAGA. This is about holding everyone accountable, regardless of party. And here's the thing, she's right. This is what Trump supporters actually want. They don't want selective transparency. They don't want controlled leaks that make Democrats look bad while protecting Republicans. They want everything. Names, dates, flights, connections, all of it. The full truth, no matter who it implicates, no matter whose career it ends, no matter what sacred cows have to be slaughtered. That's the deal. That's what drain the swamp actually means. But that puts Johnson in an impossible position, because if he gives them what they want, he might expose people Trump wants protected. But if he keeps blocking transparency, he looks like he's part of the swamp. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So what does he do? He tries to split the difference. By November, CNN reports that Johnson has shifted strategy. Now he's scheduling an Epstein files vote, but it's his version, his rules, his controlled transparency, except nobody's buying it. The Independent ran a piece that basically summed up the whole disaster. Trump and Mike Johnson embrace Epstein transparency and pay the price. The article breaks down how trying to have it both ways has cost Johnson politically and intensified questions about whether he's actually serving MAGA or just pretending to. Because here's what people are starting to realize. When you control the transparency, when you get to decide what gets released and what stays hidden, that's not really transparency at all. That's just PR. That's damage control. That's the same old Washington game where powerful people protect each other and the public gets fed carefully curated information designed to make them think they're getting the truth, when really they're just getting a story. And the MAGA base, they're not stupid. They see what's happening. They see Johnson shutting down the House to avoid votes. They see him finally caving, but only on his terms. They see him looking weak and scared and desperate to keep everyone happy, and they're done with it. They didn't sign up for this. They didn't elect Republicans to play the same games Democrats play. They wanted something different. They wanted actual change, and what they're getting is more of the same, just with different people in charge. This is bigger than just one vote or one scandal. This is about trust. And right now, Mike Johnson is bleeding trust from every direction. Conservative members don't trust him to fight for their priorities. Moderates don't trust him to manage the conference effectively. Trump world doesn't trust him to execute the agenda without drama. And the base, the actual voters, they don't trust him to deliver on the transparency and accountability they were promised. So what you're seeing now is a speaker in freefall, unable to control his conference, unable to pass basic legislation, unable to even bring the House into session without risking a revolt. And the worst part, the 2026 primaries are already looming. Multiple outlets are reporting that how Republicans handle the shutdown and these Epstein votes will follow them home. It's going to become a litmus test in every primary. Did you fight for transparency? Did you stand up to leadership? Or did you fall in line and become part of the problem? For Johnson, that means every day this drags on is another day of campaign ads writing themselves, another day of challengers positioning themselves as the real MAGA warriors who aren't afraid to fight, another day of his political career circling the drain. This is the storm, and it's only getting worse. Okay, let's break this down into what actually matters, because there's a lot of noise here, and we need to cut through it. Point 1, Mike Johnson is weaker than anyone thought possible. Think about where we are right now. This guy became speaker less than 2 years ago. He was supposed to be the unity candidate, the person who could bring the conference together after Kevin McCarthy got ousted, the loyal Trump soldier who would deliver wins. And what's he delivered? Chaos. He can't pass a budget. He can't keep the government funded. He can't even bring the House into session without members openly plotting to override him. That's not leadership. That's survival mode. And here's what makes it worse. This is exactly when President Trump needs him most. Trump's heading into the second half of his term. This is when you're supposed to be cementing your legacy, passing the big items, making the moves that define your presidency. But if your speaker can't control the House, if he's constantly firefighting internal revolts and dodging scandal votes, how are you supposed to get anything done? You can't. And Trump knows it, which means Trump's getting frustrated. And when Trump gets frustrated with people in his orbit, bad things tend to happen to their careers. Just ask all the former advisors and cabinet members who learned that lesson the hard way. Which brings us to point 2. The Epstein files are a trap, and Johnson walked right into it. Here's the brutal truth. There was no good way for Johnson to handle this. If he releases everything, powerful people get exposed. If he blocks transparency, he looks like he's covering something up. If he tries to control the release, everyone sees through it. So he went with option 3, delay, dodge, and hope it goes away. Except it didn't go away. It got bigger. Now you've got conservatives organizing discharge petitions. You've got media coverage asking why the speaker is so afraid of transparency. You've got Trump supporters who genuinely believe in exposing corruption, feeling betrayed by their own leadership, and the comparisons are already happening. Remember when Democrats spent years promising to hold people accountable and then quietly let things slide? Remember how frustrated Republican voters got watching their own party protect the establishment? This is the same thing, different party, same pattern, and the base is noticing. Johnson's trying to walk this impossible line between protecting certain people and appearing to support transparency. But you can't do both, and trying to do both just makes everyone trust you less. It makes you look weak. It makes you look compromised. It makes you look like you're part of the problem instead of part of the solution. And in today's political environment, especially in MAGA world, looking weak is a death sentence. Because once people decide you're not a fighter, once they decide you're not willing to go to war for what's right, you're done. There's no coming back from that. Point 3, this is about 2026 and everyone knows it. Every single decision happening right now is being viewed through the lens of the next primary. Every vote, every statement, every time someone signs onto a discharge petition or refuses to, it's all campaign material. And that's intentional. The people organizing against Johnson right now, they're not just mad about this one issue, they're positioning themselves for the next election cycle. Thomas Massie leading the charge on Epstein transparency, that's a primary campaign ad. I fought for the truth when leadership tried to hide it. Marjorie Taylor Greene blasting Johnson publicly, that's her making sure everyone knows she's not part of the swamp, even when it means going after a Republican speaker. These are smart political moves because they know what's coming. They know 2026 is going to be brutal for anyone who looks weak, compromised, or too cozy with establishment leadership. And Johnson, he's giving them all the ammunition they need. Every day this shutdown continues. That's a campaign ad. While Johnson sent Congress home, I was fighting to keep the government running. Every day the Epstein files stay partially hidden. That's another ad. Leadership tried to cover it up. I forced them to tell the truth. This is the scorched earth politics of the MAGA era. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you're not fighting hard enough, if you're not pure enough, if you show any weakness, you're getting primary. The base has learned that primaries are where the real power is. That's where you can actually change things. That's where you can take out the establishment and replace them with true believers. And they're not afraid to use that power anymore. They've done it before. They'll do it again. And Mike Johnson is about to become Exhibit A in why you don't cross the base. Point 4. Trump's grip on the party isn't what people think. And this is the big one. This is what all of this actually reveals. For years now, the story's been that Trump controls the Republican Party completely, that GOP members are terrified to cross him, that his endorsement is everything, and his anger means political death. And look, there's truth to that. Trump's influence is massive. But what we're seeing now shows the limits of that power. Because Mike Johnson is Trump's guy. Trump backed him. Trump needs him. And Trump's base should theoretically be rallying around him. But they're not. They're revolting. They're demanding transparency, even when it might complicate Trump's position. They're willing to blow up their own speaker to get what they want. That's not blind loyalty. That's something else. That's a movement that's moved beyond just following one person. It's developed its own momentum, its own priorities, its own willingness to eat its own if necessary. And that's actually more dangerous for Trump than a lot of people realize. Because if you can't control your own speaker, if your base is willing to revolt against your chosen leaders, how do you maintain power long term? This is the double-edged sword of building a populist movement. Yeah, it gives you massive energy and grassroots support, but it also means you can't just tell people what to think. They start thinking for themselves, and sometimes they decide you're not pure enough either. Sometimes they decide the movement is bigger than any one person, even if that person is Donald Trump. So where does this leave us? Johnson's probably going to survive for now. The votes to remove him aren't quite there yet, but he's badly wounded. His authority is shot, and every day forward, he's going to be dealing with members who know he's weak and are willing to exploit it. The shutdown will eventually end. Some kind of deal will get cut, but the damage is done. The image of a speaker who couldn't manage his own conference during a crisis, that doesn't go away. The Epstein files will probably get some kind of release. Johnson's already shifted toward allowing a vote, even if it's controlled. But it won't satisfy everyone. The conspiracy theories will persist. The questions about what's still hidden will continue. And Johnson will be tagged as the guy who tried to block transparency until he got forced into it. That label sticks. That reputation follows you. And in politics, once people decide who you are, it's almost impossible to change their minds. Johnson is now the weak speaker who hid from tough votes. The guy who shut down Congress to avoid accountability. The MAGA leader who turned out to be just another politician protecting the establishment. That's his brand now. That's his legacy. And no amount of spin or messaging is going to change it. In 2026, it's going to be a bloodbath. Every Republican who didn't fight hard enough. Every member who sided with leadership over the base. Every vote that looked like a compromise or a cover-up. It's all going to come back. Primary challenges are already being organized. Opposition research is being gathered. And the question being asked in every district is going to be simple. Are you actually MAGA, or are you just pretending? For Mike Johnson, that question has already been answered, and the answer isn't good. This is what happens when you try to be everything to everyone. When you try to serve Trump while running the institution. When you think you can manage chaos instead of just letting it burn. Eventually, the chaos wins, and everyone watching learns the lesson. In Washington right now, weakness is blood in the water, and Mike Johnson is bleeding everywhere. We'll see if he makes it to 2026. At this rate, not looking good. More on this as it develops. Because trust me, this story is far from over, not even close.